At the start of the game, when we first meet Ranni, the Dark Moon Witch, who stole a piece of destined death and assisted in orchestrating the Night of the Black Knives, she is wearing clothes modeled after the same ones her former mentor wore, and she tells us her name is Renna. Then she asks if we possess the power to summon Torrent, the spectral steed. If we tell her the truth, she says that she was entrusted with a spirit calling bell by Torrent's former master, and gives it to us. But if we lie to her, she insists to ask us again. And if we still lie to her, she gives us the spirit calling bell anyway, but leaves us with an extra piece of power, one stronger than any other item in the game.
Quite the stubborn one, aren't we? Wise in a way. The lands between are home to lies and cheats aplenty. Perhaps thine ample mistrust will be to thy benefit.
She commends us for not trusting her, and we shouldn't. Ranni stole one of the most powerful runes in all of existence. Do you really think she is above stealing a little bell? Pure and radiant, Miquella wields love to shrive clean the hearts of men. There is nothing more terrifying than one who has learned very well how to compel such affection. But that isn't Miquella's greatest strength. His greatest strength is, wait for it, his time machine. Right before Hoarah dies, Miquella uses his time machine to transport him to the Chapel of Anticipation in the garb of Godfrey, first Elden Lord, just as the Erdtree is burning and our Tarnished is in Farum Azula. From there, he plunges into the cold waters below and washes up in the stranded gravesite. Since Hoarah doesn't have either halves of the Dectus medallion, he travels to the Weeping Peninsula and uses the Tower of Return to get to Leyndell. On this journey, he thinks back on his conquests, the great foes he felled, and how he was chosen for Elden Lord. A crown was warranted by strength, regardless if one was bereft of light or not. He was a simple warrior. No divine blood flowed through his veins, yet his axe was mightier than any impaler's spear. From the Divine Bridge, he jumps down the elevator shaft and climbs through the ash and up to the Elden Throne. Hoarah knows that a Tarnished must have successfully unsealed the Rune of Death, so he waits for us at the Erdtree. He knows that the only thing that can stop him from having audience once more is the Tarnished who is able to do what we do. Slay the fire giants and burn the Erdtree. Slay Malekith, the Black Blade, and unleash Destined Death. He knows how powerful we are, so he waits. And he waits. And he... Wait a minute. That's not Hoarah. It's a mimic. Hey everybody, Jack here. The thing I love the most about Elden Ring is its ability to tell such a good story. When I look at Elden Ring, I see this amazing cast of characters with their own histories, emotions, and agendas that weave in and out with each other character. I see characters I can see myself in, from their strengths all the way to their weaknesses. They are doing these elaborate schemes to get ahead of one another, to achieve their own personal goals, but keep stepping into pitfalls and self-sabotage. But that is only how I see the story. I love this story so much that I make videos about it to share with you all, to tell you why they mean so much to me. And some of you like the story I tell, so much so you believe that the things that I've told you are true. About Elden Ring, its characters, and about myself. I either sat on camera for 3 hours to show you how much the story meant to me, or I told you what it felt like to experience Elden Ring as if it was real. But some of you don't want to watch multiple hour-long videos on that story. So I told the story again, but I changed the format and I tried to make it something different. But all I really did was just tell you that same story again. Some people commented, "I like how confident you are about your theories," while others have said, "You're too confident and you should make a video acknowledging everything you got wrong." Some of you don't believe me. Some of you with your own channels have literally laughed at my videos, have called me names, and one of you told me that how I look at Elden Ring does a disservice to the lore community. That me expressing how I love a piece of art was wrong. That how I felt was somehow harmful. And you know what? That's fine. Actually, it's great. You prefer what you think the story of Elden Ring is, and it's completely different than what I think it is. And that story is one that means so much to you that it upsets you if the story that I tell is different than yours. And that's okay. I forgive you. All of us have a valuable story to tell. It doesn't matter if this is your first Hidetaka Miyazaki game or if you've never read a George R. R. Martin book. Your story is valuable just because it's your story. There is a reason why Radigan's Rings of Light require these stats specifically. It takes intelligence to reach the truth, but you still need to have faith to believe it to be true. So whether you think that your Tarnished is a mimic tier, or that Miquella has been pulling the strings the entire time, it doesn't matter. All that matters is that Elden Ring tells the story you want it to tell. And no story is better than your story. In honor of all the people who listen to the story that I have told, here are some of the stories that others have shared with me. Here are their thoughts, their ambitions, the principles that they would follow. Because only by sharing do we learn, and only through mimicry can we grow. Thorn in his side says, Marika has unshackled herself from her physical form, just like Ranni and Miquella have done. She had to rid herself of Radigan to do this, and post-Elden Beast fight, all is left is her stone body, which has allowed her spirit to vacate. Anto says, that old man trying to get the golden construct unimpaled from his body is Miquella, divested of his flesh form, and yes, I'm insane. Dabtastic Crow 88 says, I think it's possible in the DLC trailer where we are seeing the land of the Newman. Marika pulled a Griffith, seduced her very first husband, stole her godhood, and created the lands between. Adrian says, the completed lands, lands between plus Shadowlands, were once full of many very different overlapping cultures and orders. Marika's conquest was a totalitizing event that puts the whole lands between under the dominion of a single golden order, and split off the Shadowlands as a way to hide her pre-order history. The Fist of Bread says, though Miyazaki said NPCs who could die will not be in the DLC, I believe Blackguard Big Boggart will be found running a full-blown seafood restaurant. We will be able to procure ingredients for him, and the true ending of the DLC will feature us dining on an exquisite dish made from Godwin's sea dragon meat. Cam says, death is a network. Godwin wasn't the first sacrifice, but he was the sacrifice that popped off. Where Deathroot grows, a demigod was sacrificed fully. When Godwin was only half sacrificed, that living part of him took all the sacrificed demigod power and made it part of his own as the Prince of Death. Tibia Mariners help spread this living death to the dead and expands Godwin's power, army, and influence, hijacking the power of every sacrificed demigod and making it Godwin's own. Sick Trigger says, Marika's use of a mimic tier to make a lord, Radigan, is directly responsible for the falling star that seals the Eternal Cities underground. Puzzlehead says, Godwin might be the Ool figure, or at least his merman form is beginning to take his form. Ari Rivera says, Elden Ring, Melina and Mesmer, the forgotten and erased twins. She has a record of hiding her kids. Void Tower says, Miquella invented the teleportation chest traps, using dream mist to travel secretly as Saint Trina across the lands between. Russell says, the soulless demigods, Marika's unwanted children, and their sympathizers orchestrated Godwin's assassination. Cassadar says, Saint Trina will be the final boss of the DLC, for the right to be Miquella's promised lord, mirroring Marika and Radigan. Andy says, Mesmer's booby snake talk and have a little lisp. Unusual Box says, no ancient Elden Ring. The Elden Ring depicted in crumbling Farum Azula, Malekith's boss room, is an Elden Ring from the future. Centered Tarnish says, Mesmer and Godwin are twins that had entangled umbilical cords. Marika had to sacrifice Mesmer to save Godwin. Simon R. says, their crackpot theory is that the old man depicted in the painting is Rosas. Oddly, he thought this before he realized his brooch matched the design on the weapon of the Watchdog Guardians, which represent the catacombs. Adam says, Farum Azula is a spaceship. It is UFO-shaped. The dragons are space tourists with time-traveling powers. Foxy Cleo says, Radigan is somehow Marika's shadow. whether it was before they merged and before Malekith was gifted to her, or Marika chose Radagon instead of Malekith, possibly making the betrayal of Malekith and the fact that she only had a sole reason for her shadow because she had another. Kate says, Marika is our savior and liberator. Each thing we do, part of her plan, should we make the choices she is depending on us to. Badger Lord says, Pre-Deathroot Godwyn will be a boss as a spirit, like Rennala, in service of Miquella. Cellar Door says, Marika was seduced by probably the power to becoming a god and used her son Mesmer to overthrow the Age of the Omen/Crucible, and used their bodies to make the Erdtree. She then concealed them in her veil to hide the truth. Kite Tail says, Marika uses Radagon as a honey trap for her female enemies. A Human Justicar says, Philia, the giant sleeping Albinauric, will awaken and reveal more about Loretta, Miquella, St. Trina, the salvation of the Albinaurics, and the purpose of the birthing droplet. Zarathustrar says, I think Marika wants to get rid of Radagon, or vice versa. Pharaoh, who runs the Elden Tales channel, says, Miquella was attempting to rebirth himself as the one great in a grand ritual using the Halictree as his womb and the Divine Towers as altar to sacrifice shard bearers in order to reunite the Elden Ring through the blood of the Crucible. This rebirth would allow him to create a new flow of life within the Lands Between, ending it of its current age of stagnation. I missed this one in the original recording, but Memnock says, each of the shard bearers and their surrounding environments either directly or indirectly represent one of the 7 deadly sins. Malenia is pride, Radahn is wrath, Morgott is envy, Godric is greed, Rykard is gluttony, Rennala is sloth, and Mohg is lust. Potato says, I believe that there is an overlap between Providence and Berserk and the guidance of grace in Elden Ring. Both function as the intervention of greater powers that control fate and destine people to meet their path even if it leads to their death. Rancid Avocado says, the Fell God represents forest fires and cannot function correctly in the current order until we release the Rune of Death. Asterati says, one of my many crazy conspiracy theories is that Raya Lucaria keeps the body parts of sorcerers that were turned into glintstones in their... Reliquary? 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 I want to go with reliquary. Like boxes you see around the academy. Rob Strongshield says, Radagon is a loyal shadow and the third dog shown in the child statue in Malekith's room, probably using a mimic's veil. Bruce says, the closed left eye is a signifier of someone being an Empyrean. Marika's rocky form doesn't have that side of the face. That's likely also why we don't see Miquella's face, because he could also have one of his closed eyes. St. Trina is also depicted as having one eye. Mesmer is one as well. Malenia has both eyes rotted, so we cannot see the one that is closed. Ranni's spirit has the left eye closed. Melina would also fit into this category if that was true. TD Fab says, Radagon is a split part of Marika, split off from the Elden Ring that she is embodying. He is the Rune of Death, split off and sealed away, the red hair being the red essence that is missing from the primordial vitality of the Crucible. T-Bone says, Marika's first master plan as an Empyrean was to overthrow and erase the patriarchy she grew up in, and install a matriarchy by controlling the runes of life and death. Discerning Elden Ring says, the primordial crucible is a living jar. Messy Jesse says, the great runes are once stars of the night sky and were combined at some point to form the Elden Ring. Sneaky Snake says, Miquella is the Kwisatz Haderach of the Lands Between. I think that's Dune, but I haven't watched the movies and I haven't read the books in 15 years. Metal Foxhound says, the ancient Numen, before arriving to the Lands Between/Shadow, faced extinction. The Glomide Queen and Queen Marika are twins born of a arboricultural and alchemical experiments to save their kind. I think the first one means trees and stuff. Rivu says, the daughters of Malenia tell a linear story of traumatic moments in their life that she has blocked out. But this is a land where, like matter and energy, memories cannot be destroyed. They only transduce to different forms. The ages that they are, youngest to oldest, signify when a trigger took place, and the weapons they have tell us the story of what their allegiances, purposes, story was in the moment the triggers took place. Yoke says, the Fell God is the god of the sun, and natural deity of the Lands Between. Jack says, the echoes of Marika are actually echoes of Radagon. Some of them are Radagon using the Mimic's veil to imitate Marika. Rufus says he does not think Marika colluded in Godwyn's death. He thinks Ranni instigated it as she says, but Ranni has no reason to be a fan of Marika, and he thinks that Marika was pissed off with the Newmans at some point. Paydirt says he's got a wild theory, and he's starting to think that Miquella is actually Mesmer. Hungry Pickle says, the Crucible is the Fire Giant's forge, which Marika jumped into along with the Elden Ring to blend life and birth the Erdtree. As a side effect, this also created the Misbegotten, and Marika emerged with a bit of an extra life as Radagon. Scott Chocolate says, Marika's hammer was originally the scepter of a ruler outside the Lands Between, who commanded the stars. Marika eventually repurposed it to do a little shattering. Sari Eldra says, Farum Azula is red, blue, gold themed, as the Farum Azula ruins in the Lands Between have blue tints, and many variants of beastmen have blue and gold jewelry. Also, lots of the trees' leaves there are red. Obzin84 says, the Dung Eater was an aspiring Crucible Knight who was disowned by Godfrey and his people and taken in as a refuge at the Haligtree, where he learned how to defile bodies, claiming his first 2 victims. So thank you again if you've ever watched one of my videos or left your thoughts in the comments. It really means the world. Oh, what's this? It looks like there's just one more theory. It doesn't have a name. It just says, the Mimic steals Miquella's time machine. What does that mean? The answer can be found in 2 Golden Order fundamentalist spells, which are both described as key fundamentals in their in-game text: the Law of Regression and the Law of Causality.
Round, like a circle in a spiral, like a wheel within a wheel, never ending or beginning on another spinning reel, like a snowball down a mountain or a carnival balloon, like a carousel that's burning, running rings around the moon, like a clock whose hands are sleeping past the minutes of its face, and the world is like an apple dwelling silently in space, like the circles that you find in the windmills of your mind.